blustery, kind of cloudy day, like perfect day to tell you guys a super long, scary story. I mentioned in my last video that this was coming for you guys. And if this is your first time stopping by my channel, I'll just explain really quick why I film my scary videos outside. All my other videos, I always film like inside with good lighting and everything like that. But my spooky ones, I don't want to film in my house just because I don't want to invite things in. I personally believe that the more you talk about things, the more you, I don't know, just acknowledge the paranormal, that it attracts and invites in. Which, yes, I am sitting in my backyard, but I figure, I don't know, I just feel safer when I don't film inside. Alrighty guys, so today's story is seriously the scariest story I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's not just one story. This story is told, actually, okay, so I'll tell you who I'm telling it for. I am telling it for a subscriber, actually, her name's Shauna. And all of this started with her actually commenting on one of my previous paranormal storytime videos. And she told me the scariest thing, like the story I'm gonna tell you guys in a minute, but that story was just so scary and freaky and real, you know what I mean? Only because I've done all kinds of research on paranormal, and I don't know, it was so freaky. Like, I knew it was real. Which, really quick, I'll go ahead and get into that. If you're watching this and you think all of this is a bunch of baloney, if you don't believe in it, that is totally fine. You can take the rest of this video with a grain of salt, take it as just pure entertainment. That's totally fine. I understand, especially if you're someone who hasn't experienced anything freaky ever in their life. Like, why would you believe in something like that? You know what I mean? So I totally understand. I am not pushing this on you at all. I'm not saying, you know, you should believe in it, but I personally feel like it's real. And Shauna, the one who I'm telling her story, she clearly, like, she lives it. It's real, it's a nightmare, and she's lived it her whole entire life. So today's story is going to be about basically her entire life. Something has been following her. Now, all the stories she's told me, I still can't figure out if it's one particular thing or if it's more that she is just, which you'll see in certain points of the story. Shauna is one of those people who is, I would say, gifted. Kind of like I talked in my last paranormal video, you know, some people, their sixth sense was never suppressed, so it's pretty developed. Other people, you know, it got suppressed, they forgot about it, and they go their entire life without experiencing paranormal activity. So I believe Shauna is just very open, which could be why all of these things have happened her entire life. I don't know, but at the same time, it also kind of sounds like it's one particular demonic entity that's just been following her, maybe attached to her, I'm not sure. But yeah, so basically she commented on one of my videos, the first creepy story, and so I messaged her. I was like, holy cow, like, that is the craziest story I've ever read. Like, I totally believe you. It's so scary. And I asked her, like, hey, would you mind me mentioning it in a video? And we ended up emailing back and forth, and she's like, actually, that's just a little tiny snippet in what I have experienced. She was like, things like this have happened my entire life. So she ended up telling me pretty much like her whole story, to the point from when she was a little girl growing up till now she has her own kids, and now her own kids are experiencing the same thing. It's just the whole story, her whole life has been so scary. And she's been kind enough to tell me everything in detail, and she's been kind enough to go ahead and let me tell you guys. So thank you so much, Shauna, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. The original story she commented on my video was she was washing dishes one night, and she had taken the sharp knife out of the sink and put it on the side so that way she wouldn't have to fumble around and cut herself. So she's washing dishes, and all of a sudden, which if you hear, oh yeah, sorry guys, so I took all kinds of notes. I wanted to make sure I got every detail right and accurate. So if you hear paper or see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes. But anyway, so she's washing the dishes when all of a sudden her daughter comes out of nowhere, runs in, grabs the knife, and takes off. So Shauna is like, oh my gosh, so she starts chasing her, you know, give me back that knife, give that to me. And her daughter runs in the bathroom, Shauna's right behind her and follows her in. And when Shauna gets in the bathroom, there's nobody there. And she looked in the shower curtain, she looked in the cabinets, she looked, I mean, a bathroom is a very small room. So there's not many places her daughter could have gone, and she was nowhere to be seen in there. And Shauna was just so confused. Like, what do you do when you're chasing your daughter with a knife? You chase her in the bathroom and she's not there. So she was just standing there, and her husband kind of noticed and he started laughing. So she kind of went out in the living room and he was like, what are you doing? And so Shauna kind of explained what happened, and her husband was like, she's in her bedroom sleeping. And Shauna was like, there's no way. How do you just like make up everything that happened? Like, she was busy washing dishes, you know what I mean? Like, she saw what she saw. So she went in her daughter's room, and sure enough, she was in there sleeping, which, oh my gosh, like that is the freakiest thing ever. And she also mentioned that whatever is in their house currently now, the issues they've been having now, whatever it is, mimics her voice, mimics her husband's voice, and mimics her kids' voices. Oh, I like literally got goosebumps. Clearly something that does that can morph into the shape of real people, to where the point where she really thought her daughter came and grabbed the knife. They really think they hear each other's voices. That's kind of beyond just a ghost. That sounds like something A, really powerful, and B, you'll see from all the other stories I tell you, it doesn't sound like it's something friendly. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just tell her full life story. So it started when she was a little girl. Her mom, her dad, her older brothers, and her moved into her childhood home when she was months old, so a baby. And just to kind of give some background, her home was not the happiest place growing up. There was a lot of turmoil, chaos, arguing, things like that. So that's kind of some background, which, as I kind of mentioned in my last video, when there's a lot of, sadness, negative emotions lingering around, that attracts entities that feed off that enjoy the negativity, enjoy all that chaos. So it kind of makes sense that it attracted something to the family. Now, she also told me that she found out later on in life, as she was an adult, that one of her older brothers, one day when he was younger, he was playing with a friend, and in their basement, the floor was concrete. Her brother and his friend drew a pentagram with lighter fluid and lit it on fire. Now, typical thing kids do, like a lot of kids are into spooky stuff, and it's just something that when you're young you don't realize can have real life repercussions. So her brother lit it on fire, and he didn't think it was really gonna light up in that shape, and she said he got kind of freaked out at that point and like put it out and was like, okay, I don't want to mess with this anymore. So once again, that was not a good thing, especially adding in all of the energy that was attracting these negative entities. So that's the background. Now, Shauna's first memory of a paranormal encounter was when she was 5. She said that she was playing on her bed with her dolls, just minding her own business, when all of a sudden she randomly got really scared for no reason, which when you're preoccupied playing or doing something, you're not thinking about freaky stuff. Usually you start scaring yourself and stuff when you have nothing to do, or you're bored, or you're home alone, you know what I mean? The situation, again, was not like that. So she felt really scared all of a sudden, and she went to get off her bed and go get her mom when something flipped her and pushed her off the bed. She started crying. Of course, she's terrified. Her mom comes running in, and she tells her mom, like, oh my gosh, I was playing and there's nothing in here with me, but something pushed me off the bed. And to Shauna's surprise, her mom believed her, which that's one thing. Shauna's mom never said, oh, you're making it up, or why are you crying for no reason. She always believed what Shauna told her, which Shauna found out later on was because the mom experienced a lot of scary stuff too and was trying to kind of hide it from her kids. Now, around this time, Shauna did have an imaginary friend named Colleen, and she said when she was little, Colleen just had blonde hair, a long white dress, which now that Shauna's older, she can describe as it was a Victorian style dress. Keep that in the back of your mind because that will come up later on. So one of the people that this entity was targeting was her dad. Now, her dad had his own workshop in the basement where the brother did the pentagram, and so he was really busy with work. He was gone all the time, but when he wasn't gone, he was in his workshop in the basement working. Now, Shauna said something would always torment him down there. Late at night, toys would go off by themselves. He would hear noises, and one night her dad and her mom were arguing and going at it, and Shauna was kind of like in the distance when all of a sudden Shauna said that she saw a huge black mass come out from her dad and just move into the wall of her room, which of course she's a little kid and she screamed. So then her parents stopped arguing. They came and asked what's wrong. She told them again. Mom did not brush her off. Another time she heard them kind of talking loud, and she kind of thought they were arguing, but when she went to go get closer, she realized that they weren't arguing with each other, but they were like flustered. And she looked at her dad, and he had bite marks on his face and he was bleeding. And she described the bite marks as pointy, definitely not human, but definitely not a dog's bite either. Oh my gosh, like, so clearly something was tormenting her father, and again, something that bites is A, not good, and B, no longer a human spirit either. So that was one of the things that happened that leads me to believe like this is something demonic. Now the other main target, it seemed like, was Shauna. Anytime I hear sirens, I'm like, oh, I hope someone's okay. Like, I'll wait till they go by. So one night she was laying in bed and she had her little dog with her, and she woke up because she heard something walking around in the attic above her, and she heard it come down the stairs and she heard it kind of walk towards her room slowly. And at this point she was kind of facing the wall, so she wasn't facing her doorway. So she was too terrified to like move. She was just frozen with fear. Like, she heard something coming down slowly to her room that was in the attic, which it's in the middle of the night. It's not her parents. It's obviously not her brothers. So anyway, she hears it get closer to her room, and she hears her dog kind of start whimpering, which, side note, if you know a lot about the paranormal, animals can sense things that we can't. So that's kind of a good indicator that something's there, is when your cat or dog, if they're acting weird, watching something that you don't see. So the fact that the dog started whimpering, anyway, so she heard it come right up to her bed, which again, she's facing the wall, so she's too terrified to look what it is. And then she heard it kind of stand there for a little while and walk back out, and she heard it go all the way back up to the attic. She said it would do this on and off for weeks. Same thing. She'd hear it come from the attic, come in her room, and every time she was too terrified to look. So she said that this went on and off for weeks. And she didn't say anything to her mom until she said at one point one night, whatever it was whispered her name in her ear. And that's when she told her mom. So again, when she told her mom believed her and took her, and she grabbed the Bible and they went and prayed in every single room of the house, which she said that for a while it did stop, it didn't come back, no activities happened for a while, but after some time went on, things started happening again. So at this point, Shauna was around 9, and at 9 years old, she was developing depression, eating disorders, just really major serious things for someone so young, which again, that kind of makes me think that it was paranormal related. Because a lot of times, especially like demonic or dark entities, they feed off negativity. And when they get strong enough, they can kind of impose depressions on people. They almost can become like a lingering cloud of negativity. And it's a known thing that when a demon's around or an evil entity is around, the people who live in that area become depressed. So I personally think that that's where Shauna's depression came from, and I kind of brought that up to her, and she was like, I kind of think so too. So at this point, poor thing, like, she was depressed. She didn't have very many friends, but she did have one friend, which I will refer to her the rest of the video. I don't want to use her real name just to protect her, but she had a little friend named Michelle, which she refers to her as her sister. So anytime throughout the video I say Michelle or her sister, I'm talking about the same girl. But basically, this girl kind of grew up in a parallel life that Shauna did. You know, mom and dad didn't get along all the time, and they actually became friends because their moms were really good friends. So they would play all the time. Their moms would always hang out together, and then Michelle would come over and they would play. So one day they were playing, and Michelle had a little brother who was around 3 or 4, and they saw him kind of talking to someone a ways away. And so they went over to him. They're like, hey, you know, who are you talking to? And he was like, the girl. You didn't see her? And they were like, no, there was a girl here. Yeah, I was talking to her. You didn't see her? And they said, okay, well, what did she look like? And he said, oh, she had blonde hair and a long white dress. remember Colleen, Shauna's imaginary friend when she was little. So Shauna and Michelle went to their moms and told them what happened, and Shauna said that they just kind of like looked at each other and they didn't really make a big deal. Which later on down the road, when Shauna's mom told her about her imaginary friend, that's when it like clicked for Shauna. She's like, oh my gosh, like I forgot about, I had that imaginary friend Colleen, and Michelle's little brother clearly could see and talk to her too. So I don't think that Colleen was necessarily the bad entity, but I don't really know. It could have been that this whatever entity has been following her whole life kind of shifted into a little girl. I don't know. Or it could have really been a spirit of a little girl, which, like I mentioned, children can kind of see things that adults can't. So who knows if Colleen was really the spirit of a little girl, or if Colleen was this entity that could make itself look and seem like a little girl. Either way, like creepy. So shortly after that, Shauna's parents did split up. Dad moved out, and right after he moved out one night, Shauna's mom was cooking and dinner was ready, so she told Shauna like, hey, go tell your dad, out of habit, hey, go tell your dad that dinner's ready. So Shauna went down, you know, and hollered down in the basement again, like he had just left, so it was a habit. They were trying to get used to everything, their new life. And so she yelled down in the basement like, hey, like dinner's ready. And at that point she kind of realized, oh, Dad's not here. But then she heard a chair move on the cement floor in the basement, which by this time Shauna's mom also realized like, oh, I forgot, you know, never mind. But they both heard the chair move. So Shauna's mom yelled, lock the door, lock the door. And so Shauna shut the door and locked it, and they heard something coming up the stairs, which again, the dad was no longer there. And they heard it come up the stairs, and then it just stopped, and they didn't hear anything after that. Now, shortly after this, they did end up moving, which Shauna said right away, creepy things started happening. At this point, one of her cousins, he actually came in to live with them and moved in with them, which was cool for Shauna because they loved to play together. But she said that anytime her mom wasn't home, she said her and her cousin would hear something following them upstairs. Wherever they would go, they would hear something follow her, which it was just Shauna and her cousin, because at this point her older brothers were gone and out of the house. One night they were sleeping, which Shauna at this point, like scary things would happen all the time. Like toilets would flush by themselves, they would hear knocking noises, just paranormal activity was going on. So Shauna and her cousin were too scared to sleep in their bed, so Shauna would sleep with her mom in her bed, and her cousin kind of made a little bed on the floor next to her, and he would sleep there. So one morning, it was early, Shauna woke up because she heard commotion going on, and her mom was kind of by the bed, and she looked over, and her cousin had the cord of the telephone wrapped around his neck like 3 times and was choking, and her mom was trying to get it off and trying to keep him calm. So this thing was continuing to be physical. A few months later, her cousin moved back out. At this point, like Shauna and him would talk on the phone all the time because they were used to living together, so they missed each other. And one night they were talking on the phone, and Shauna had the TV on, and her mom was sitting there in the living room too. All of a sudden, the TV channel turned by itself and turned up in volume all the way up, super, super loud. So Shauna and her mom were like, oh, like it was so loud, and they were trying to turn it off, and it wasn't turning off. So Shauna's mom pulled the cord to the TV out of the wall, and she said the TV stayed on for about 2 minutes after that, which at this point in time, they did not have technology where, and I don't even know if they have this now. Do they have TVs that are battery and plug-in operated? You know what I mean? I actually don't even know if they have those now, but definitely back then they did not have TVs that were both battery operated and needed to be plugged into the electricity. So the fact that the TV was on for about 2 minutes afterwards, like something kept the TV on other than electricity. So the weird thing is the channel the TV switched to was wrestling, which odd, like what a random thing for the TV to change to. And once they got the TV off and everything like that, Shauna called her cousin back, and he was like, what happened? And she was like, it was the weirdest thing. The TV changed channels and turned up all the way, and it stayed on after we had unplugged it from the wall. And he was like, no way. He was kind of freaked out, and she was like, you know, what's wrong? And he goes, I'm watching the same exact channel right now. And she was like, no way. And he was like, I swear. And he turned up his TV and let Shauna listen over the phone. And sure enough, he was watching wrestling, the same channel that her TV changed to, which, oh my gosh, like just so creepy. It was even bothering them, like her cousin was out of the house and it still was bothering them both. Now, once again, they had moved a couple times after this, and she said that things would be fine for a little while, but right away they would start up again. So whatever this was for sure following her family. Now, there was something else that would kind of happen periodically wherever she would go that makes me think, again, that kind of leans me more towards it wasn't just one thing that Shauna was experiencing, that there could have been good entities or good spirits that, were following her too. So she said when she was young, her oldest brother died tragically, and she was the closest to him. Like, he would always give her attention and play with her and take her places. Like, they had a really, really close bond, to the point where when he died, Shauna's brother's girlfriend came up to her and was like, "Oh, you must be Shauna. He talked so much about you. He loved you." So her and her brother who died had a really, really close, special relationship, and she said periodically she would just catch a whiff of his cologne out of nowhere. Like, she'd be at home, so it's not like someone random was passing by that could be wearing it, and she would always tell people, like, "Do you guys smell that?" Her family members, her mom, whoever was around, like, "Do you guys smell that?" And they would say no, except for, she said one day her sister came over one day and she smelled it, and she was like, "Do you smell that?" And Michelle was like, "Yeah, it smells really good. It smells like strong cologne." Shauna was like, "That's my brother. Like, I always tell you guys, see, I'm not crazy." So that was a thing that would happen periodically, which again, I honestly believe that really was her brother coming and visiting her, watching over her. But again, Shauna was kind of very open. So yeah, it wasn't all bad, you know what I mean? There was good thrown in there too. Now, around 2011, Shauna's mom died. Shauna took her kids and they moved into a new house. She got married and everything like that. And paranormal things continued to happen at her new house. And at this point, it started happening to her kids. Her oldest daughter, which Shauna says also she kind of thinks might be gifted or just, open to the paranormal as well, kind of like Shauna is. But her oldest daughter would say that in the middle of the night, someone would come in and open and close her door, and that she would say that it was Shauna's mom, Grandma. So she would tell Shauna, like, "Oh, Grandma comes in and checks on me at night." Which, kind of like her mom, Shauna never dismissed anything her kids said, you know what I mean? She didn't really shut them down, but at the same time, like her mom, Shauna tried her best. Like, she did a really good job trying to protect her kids because she didn't want them to freak out. Or she would help them come up with a logical explanation, just because Shauna didn't want her kids to go through and be terrified all the time like she was. And Shauna experienced it too. So she said one night she was laying in her daughter's bed with her while she was, trying to get her to go to sleep. And she said her daughter was asleep at this time, and something pulled the covers right off of her. Things like that would happen. A lot of times when her kids weren't home, she would still hear voices coming from their rooms. Again, something would mimic the family members' voices. Her younger son would have night terrors and say that something big and black would be standing by his bed at night. Okay, another creepy thing that Shauna would say her kids would tell her all the time is they would see a faceless figure that would stare at them all the time. She said this figure would peek around the corner, would peek from under the stairs. At one point, she said her daughter said that something peeked in the shower while she was taking a shower, a faceless figure. Now, when she told me that, I was like, oh my God, that is so freaky. And okay, listen to this, guys. This is so crazy. The other day, I was getting ready for work. I was doing my makeup, which when I do my makeup in the morning for work, I like to watch or listen to YouTube videos. I happened to be listening to a paranormal video, and it was one of Haley Reese's, which she's like super into paranormal. Like, her whole channel is paranormal stories. I will go ahead and link it down below if you want to see. But I was watching one of her videos, and I did save the link to the specific video so you guys can go watch it yourselves. Like, you won't believe what she talks about in this particular video. She said that it was something with, like, when she was younger, her and her friends played with the Ouija board, and then I don't remember the background story, but after that, something would follow her friend. And in this particular video, she had said that she got in contact with her friend, her childhood friend, because she wanted to ask her, like, hey, is something still following you from when we played with the Ouija board? And so this whole video was about what her friend had said, like, now in time as an adult. And her friend had said that she would always see a faceless figure. Exactly what Shauna's kids would describe. Like, holy cow. So a lot of times when you hear kind of similar things with completely different stories, you know what I mean? Like, Shauna's kids would see it, and then some other YouTuber's friend. Like, they're not connected at all, and they saw the same thing, a faceless figure. It was, that makes me think, like, is that a demon thing? Does that signify something? Does that signify that, is that something that like demons do? Or I don't even know, like, I hate even saying that word, demons. It just freaks me out. So again, like, kind of like I said in the beginning, like, everything that Shauna told me, yeah, it's like far-fetched, but I believe it. I don't think, how would you make all this up? And Shauna and I have been emailing back and forth for a while, and she's just not the type of person to make this up. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just thought that was that really creeped me out. I was like, oh my gosh. Now, again, whatever was in Shauna's house following Shauna's family didn't just pick on Shauna, her kids, anyone who was in there, it would pick on. She said her brother would come babysit the kids when her and her husband would go on date nights, and he even said that he had experienced freaky things. At one point, something threw an apple at his head. Another time, he said he was sitting on the couch and he felt someone playing with his hair, and he just automatically assumed it was the 4-year-old. So he kind of let it happen for a while, and then he turned around and nobody was there. Another time her brother was babysitting, so I guess the family had like a designated knock they would all do, which is kind of funny because my family, we used to do the same thing, especially when going on vacation and like we had to knock on hotel doors and stuff like that. We always would do a certain knock. Ours, for example, would be, so we go da 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 da, and then we would do 3 knocks after. So apparently Shauna's family had a similar thing where they had a certain knock they would do. So while Shauna's brother was babysitting, he heard the knock and obviously thought that they were home. So he went to open the door and nobody was there. He looked around, he was kind of freaked out and was like, that's a little weird. And so I guess they had like one of those chain deadbolts on their door, kind of like a hotel has, I think. And so he kind of locked the deadbolt and was like, that was weird. So he locked that. And about 15 minutes later, he heard one of Shauna's kids start screaming, someone's trying to get in, someone's trying to get in. So her brother jumped up and went out, and at this point the door was kind of open, but the deadbolt was holding it. And so he went and looked and nobody was there, and he asked Shauna's son, like, what happened? And her son had said that he saw the knob of the door open, and it opened the door enough to where something reached its hand in between, you know, the door and the space that the deadbolt was holding shut. He said he saw a black hand reach through and grab the doorknob, and then he said it went away by the time the brother got there. So at this point, like, Shauna was like, all right, we're blessing our house. So they got holy oil and they did a blessing on their house, and while they were blessing the house, her 4-year-old started screaming bloody murder, and all of a sudden just started slamming the older sister's door, just repeatedly. So Shauna ran over and got the 4-year-old and like grabbed him and, you know, dipped her finger in the holy oil and put a cross on his forehead. And all of a sudden he started crying and just like went limp. Now, I kind of also forgot to mention, I'm kind of mixing up genders a little bit of her kids. I'm not saying their names just because, like I said, I want to keep everybody protected. She did say I could use her first name, which I guess it's a little late to be telling you this in this story. But yeah, so that's kind of why I'm not giving specific names, or I'm switching up the genders a little bit, because it doesn't really matter pertaining to the story, but I just want to make sure Shauna's family is protected, you know? But yeah, so I guess doing this blessing had helped for a little while, just like everything, you know, the mom praying with the Bible, everything. They've tried smudging their house, they've tried everything, and it does help for a while, but whatever it is always comes back. Now, there have been a couple recent things that have just, you know, kind of really freaked Shauna out and just are so scary. One of the things being that her oldest daughter refuses to look in mirrors, and it took a while for Shauna's daughter to actually tell Shauna why, but when she did, apparently there was a time where her daughter was looking in the mirror and in the bathroom, you know, and went to turn to go towards the toilet, and her reflection did not turn down and follow. Her reflection stayed where it was. So Shauna's kids are terrified, and now they're getting to the point where they're getting older and it's harder for Shauna to cover up, you know what I mean? And so I just feel like I really don't know how she lives her day-to-day life. Like, her life seriously has been like a real life paranormal activity, like, you know, those videos. And that's what I told her while we were talking. So I was like, seriously, like, this is way scarier. Like, all of the little stories than a lot of Hollywood movies that are fabricated, but all of this really did happen. Now I'm down to the last story for you guys that has happened to Shauna, which again, this has been a recent one. She said that one night her husband was at his mom's house and she had just gotten all the kids to bed, everybody was sleeping, and at this time, one of her kids was a little baby, so she took the baby with her into the bathroom. She's like, perfect timing, all the kids are in bed, hubby's not home, I'm gonna take a shower. So she brought the bassinet in with her and was taking a shower. And about 10 minutes into her shower, she heard a loud thump. So she kind of stopped because she thought it was her husband, and she stopped and listened. She was like, okay, maybe I'm hearing something, continued to shower. Then she heard a loud noise again, and at this point she was like, okay, one of the cats knocked something down, like I need to get out. So she gets out of the shower and she goes and looks around to see what got knocked down, because she said it was a really loud thump this time, to where for sure she's like, okay, I'm not hearing things, one of the cats knocked something down. So she's looking and everything is in its rightful place, when all of a sudden she hears someone with shoes running down the stairs, which at first she's like, oh gosh, one of the kids is up. So she, says, hey, we need to go to bed, and looks around and nobody's downstairs. So she's like, that's weird, maybe they ran back upstairs. So she went up the stairs, checked in every single room, all of her kids were sleeping. So by this point, she's freaked out. She's like, oh my gosh, like everything I'm hearing, there's no explanation, and her husband's not home, her kids are asleep, the cats didn't mess with anything. 15 minutes later, her husband does end up coming home, and she tells him what happened. So being a guy, like, he thinks someone's in the house, so he checks the house, he looks around, he looks in all the closets, nobody is there. So that is the last kind of specific story I have for you guys from Shauna, but she says things still happen all of the time, and it doesn't matter where they move, it doesn't matter what they do, whatever it is keeps coming back. Comment down below what you think it is, if you've experienced anything similar to what Shauna's experienced. I know this video probably turned out really long, but like I said, I wanted to make sure I just told you all the stories. It's just, they all kind of piece together, or they, the whole big picture makes sense. Like, something has either been following Shauna her entire life, definitely not good, or I don't know, again, it could be that maybe she is just really susceptible and can really see things, whatever it is. I don't know. I think it could be a little both, but I definitely think that something demonic is following her, and I'm like, so right now, can we all just send, even though you guys don't know Shauna and I've never met her in person, I feel like I know her already just because we talk back and forth now, but let's all just send her some positive vibes. But yeah, how freaky is her life? I had to share it with you guys. That's seriously the scariest whole life story I think I've ever heard in my entire life. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, afternoon, whatever time zone you are in right now. I'll see you guys in my next video, and don't let the bed bugs bite.